Hey Defying Gravity Volleyball family, it's Coach T and I'm back with another YouTube video. In today's YouTube video, we're finally at the final part of my series, What Are All the Volleyball Positions? In today's sixth part, we are learning about the defensive specialist. Be sure to like and subscribe, but let's just hop right into the video. Since this series has been all about teaching the fundamentals in a beginner's way about all the volleyball positions, let's start right at the forefront. So a defensive specialist, also known as DS, is primarily a defensive position playing in the back row, but I'm sure you could have guessed that with the name. The DS has a huge role in back row's defense, typically coming off of the bench to sub in for another one of their teammates who primarily focuses on offense. This could look like an outside hitter rotated to position number 1, and a DS comes off the bench, subs in for them, and goes to play the positions 1, 6, and 5. Once the DS got to position number 4, they would sub back in with that same outside and go sit on the bench so they got back into the back row. This shows how a defensive specialist truly is a vital part in defense, because without them going on the court, you would have an outside hitter who might not excel as well or be specialized in defense as much as a DS is. So it's a perfect way to ensure that serve receive and that first touch in volleyball has a better chance of being a good pass to our setter. Just remember, this doesn't mean that in the history of volleyball, a DS has never started on the court. Of course, that happens all the time, but typically a DS is often subbing in and out because they're a defensive specialist and stay in the back row. If you watch my other parts in the series where we learned about positions like the libero, you heard that the libero is the defensive leader on the team. But it's really important to remember a defensive specialist is very different from a libero. A DS has to substitute with the down ref, waiting for the scores table to say they're good to go and then run on, while the libero has a different color jersey indicating to the up ref they can run on and off of the court without substituting. So a DS is using our substitution allotment while the libero is not. So that's why it's good to have both of them if you are able to. As we learned in the other 5 parts in this series, I really love to make examples with other popularized sports in order for people and beginners to better understand the positions. So if you're a big basketball fan like me, I definitely would compare a defensive specialist to a sixth man in basketball. Most people know there aren't 6 players on a basketball court at one time, but a sixth man, which even has its own award in basketball, is allotted to a player who comes off of the bench and completely impacts positively their teammates on either ends of the court. So you can see why a defensive specialist would also fit this description, because they have a very key role in defense where they come off of the bench and really impact their team. So it's pretty clear how impactful a defensive specialist can be on the court, because not only are they a vital part in ensuring our defense is constantly going, which, as we know, a first touch, which is often serve receive or digging off of our opponent's attack, has to be a good pass in order for us to even set up our offense with the setter and front row hitters. So this is why people can overlook and say offense is more important than defense, but defense is our first touch, and that's really starting the whole play. So a defensive specialist is very impactful. They work alongside the libero to create a very cohesive, communicative, and efficient defense for our offense. In this next part, we're going to start to explain the attributes that I think make a phenomenal DS. So I came up with 5 attributes to go with a phenomenal DS, and they include adaptability and strategic thinking, consistent ball handling, they're quick and agile, they're definitely a team player, and lastly, they have communication skills. So as we just learned, a DS typically is coming off of the bench to sub in for another one of their teammates to play a big role in back row defense. So having adaptability and strategic thinking is a great way to be a phenomenal DS, because you need to be able to stay locked in on the bench when you're watching, keep up with the momentum of what's going right, what's going wrong with your teammates, and how can you, once you step on that court as a DS, positively impact and change defense to be better. I will say, I do think it's much more difficult for someone to come off the bench and go into a really intense and close-knit volleyball match than someone that's just constantly playing 6 rotations. That's not to say workloads are more or less. I think mentally, which is a big part of volleyball, that's such a big impact, and I think people overlook how a DS really has to just naturally adapt and think strategically when they walk onto the court. The second one is consistent ball handling, which I think is, of course, a given, but if I didn't include it in here, what kind of attributes would we be looking for, right? So to me, consistent ball handling means that your passing efficiency is very high, and that's forearm and overhand. And that goes honestly into my next point, which is being quick and agile. The best passers that I've ever seen professionally, any type of level, are always quick and agile. That means they're on their toes, they're moving to the ball, they always have their platform in the correct spot, angled to the setter, and it's just setting up your defense for the best opportunities. So, having consistent ball handling comes with being quick and agile. The fourth point is being a team player. And this is, again, something I think people can overlook for a defensive specialist because, like we know, they are typically coming off of the bench to sub in and go into the game kind of cold turkey sometimes and hoping for the best with their consistent passing to keep up with it. But as a team player who comes off of the bench, you're going to look like someone that's constantly cheering. You're not moping around and wishing you were the libero who is constantly in, maybe a little more than you. But being a phenomenal DS means that you are a good team player. You're not thinking about yourself, you're thinking how you still have a very vital role as a DS, and that comes with confidence and trust. And lastly, communication skills. As you guys know, if you've seen my other parts, I say this about every position because volleyball is about communicating to each other. But especially a defensive specialist needs to communicate, especially since they're working with the libero and they are playing a vital role in the first touch on defense. So communication skills is a must. A quiet defensive specialist wouldn't have as big of an impact as one that's constantly communicating, even when the ball is not near them. In this last section, I am going to give you guys the defensive specialist that I think you should be watching. It's important to note that a lot of people in D1 or professional volleyball are listed as a DS alongside another position. So if you're trying to do your own research, which please do that, you need to do research, watch a lot of volleyball professional D1 to learn about the sport. I don't want you guys to just hear the people that I like and just go watch them solely. You guys should really look into the athletes that inspire you. So when you are doing your research, because you're going to, don't be discouraged by if you see libero slash DS or right side slash DS, whatever you see, it's totally okay. If it says DS or even if it says libero, you will still be learning key traits that you should be having as a defensive leader on your team. But Lexi Jin, something that I found on YouTube from doing my own research is her club highlights from when she was a DS slash libero, and it was really inspiring to see someone her age excel like that at such an intense position. So I made sure to include Lexi Jin, even though she might not be like a Micah Hancock or like a Lexi Rodriguez type of known athlete with thousands of followers. I don't think that matters. I think this section is really about finding athletes that are inspiring. And lastly, I wanted to include Jada Willis, who is a recent graduate. She was a phenomenal DS, and she just graduated from Drake. I made sure to include Jada in this because if you just look up who had the top number one digs in our last season of volleyball, so the 2024 through 2025 D1 season, it was Jada Willis. I think that's phenomenal to see, especially at that level of volleyball. I made sure to include Jada in this. If you're interested in learning a more intermediate version about any of the positions, not just the defensive specialist, please let me know in the comments down below. But this was a very fundamental, beginner-friendly version. Please do not forget to like and subscribe. It truly helps me out so much, more than you guys think. It lets me know what you guys are liking, what you guys may not like as much, or something that you guys want more of. And please don't forget to follow my TikTok and Instagram. I post on them, if not daily, weekly. And lastly, but definitely not least, check out my website, defyinggravityvolleyball.com, where I am posting my YouTube video links, blog posts, which go there first, days before. Sometimes my blog posts are posted there first and foremost, and then I advertise on my social media. So make sure you check out my website to learn more about Defying Gravity Volleyball or just learn more about volleyball in general. Thank you for being here, and if you watched all the parts of my series for what other volleyball positions, thank you. I hope it helped you, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.